Marketing. Love it or hate it, we all know that it's a much needed commodity for any online business. And when it comes to selling your online course, it's no different. But it's safe to say there's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to marketing your online course. So in this episode, we're joined by Agatha Brewer to discuss how you can determine and implement your most aligned marketing strategy based on your personality and your strengths. Agatha Brewer is the founder of Agatha Brewer Coaching, where she works with new entrepreneurs to help them launch and grow businesses that give them freedom and flexibility, whilst also making a bigger impact on the world. She combines over 15 years of digital marketing experience and her coach training to help new business owners move their ideas out of their heads and into reality, getting them clarity around what they want to create, helping them to set the right strategic foundations, and unravelling any mindset blocks that are standing in their way. Welcome to Bloggers Creating Courses, the podcast which will take you behind the scenes of creating an online course. I'm your host, Verity Songon, founder and education consultant at veritysongon.com. I'm so excited to help you create an online course that you are proud of and to be part of your journey to scale your business as an online course creator. Let's get into the episode. Agatha, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's great to have you here. We have got some really exciting things that we're going to talk about today because we're going to be talking about intentional marketing strategies. But before we dive on in, I'm just going to hand over to you. Tell me who you are, what it is you do. Tell me all the things about you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. So my name's Agatha Brewer, and I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am a business coach who works with new entrepreneurs who are looking to launch and grow their business. I usually work with female solopreneurs or service-based businesses, but I have also worked with men in the past too. So it just depends if I can help you or not. Happy to be here. And those are the people that I support. And I also just, I don't know if it was in my bio, but I have over 15 years of marketing experience in the corporate world. So I use that expertise and I kind of tailor it to the people that I work with, because I know that just because I have experience in marketing doesn't mean that those are the exact strategies you would use. And that's going to kind of go into our topic today.
Sure. So yeah, that leads us in really nicely to the first question, really, because we're here to talk about intentional marketing strategies. So first of all, tell me, what is an intentional marketing strategy? How would you define that?
Yeah. So for me, this is my own personal definition, but for me, it's about taking a step back when you're a new business owner, at least in my experience and with many of the people that I've worked with. We get bombarded with a lot of information, a lot of people telling us what they think we should do in terms of our marketing. And a lot of times, if you don't have your own, marketing experience prior to being a business owner, you start to listen to that advice and you start maybe trying to copy those strategies. And a good example of this is like funnels or webinars or things that are a little bit more complicated. And when you're a new business owner, you may not know how to do those things. So what I think is really important to do as a new business owner is to really just take a step back, to really listen to your own intuition about what marketing strategies will work best for you. And I think a lot of times, we think we have to do a certain thing because somebody told us that that's the right way to do it. But in reality, we would actually be better to just listen to ourselves and tap into that inner knowledge. And I'm a coach, so that's what I help people do, is to tap into that inner knowledge of what do I actually like showing up on? Where do I actually like to market myself? Even before I was a business owner, maybe I like social media, maybe that's a natural place for me to start. So it's about tapping into that internal knowing of, what do I actually like doing? Because that's really important, because if you hate the marketing strategy that you're doing, you're not going to do it. And if you don't do it, you're not going to get results. So it's really tapping into that. And I think we'll talk about, your personality and your strengths, but those are where you want to start. You want to look at what kind of person am I? What are my values? Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? What am I already good at? And start from that.
I love that idea of actually basing it on you as opposed to what everybody else is doing. Because I think, particularly when you have a digital business, when you're working online, it is so easy to get caught up in that nuance of I have to run Facebook ads because that's what somebody else did and it's the only way to make any money, or I have to post on Twitter 100 times a day because that's what somebody else did. And I love it that you're bringing it back to you as an individual and what is going to work for you. So that then leads us on really, really nicely to my next question of how do you choose your most aligned marketing strategies based on your personality and strengths?
Yeah, so I actually created a quiz around this, so you can come check that out. I'm sure I'll share it at the end. But
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes.
basically, you want to know what kind of like personality you have first. Like start there, I think. For me, you can be either an introvert, an extrovert, or there's something called an ambivert, which is someone who can kind of be either or. Sometimes you're more introverted, sometimes you're more extroverted, depending on the situation, and you can kind of turn on the extrovert, or maybe your more natural place is to be an introvert. So that's where I fall, actually. I'm an ambivert. So for me, going on podcasts is a little bit of a stretch, but I have my own podcast. I've actually found that I enjoy it because I don't necessarily have to be on camera all the time. I like speaking. I like telling my story. So, and if you're an ambivert, you can kind of go in between introvert and extrovert. If you're an introvert, you're probably going to be scared of going live on social media or giving big speeches, or doing what most people, the easy thing to when you launch a business is to go speak about it, or at least it is easy for extroverts, or maybe potentially for an ambivert. But if you're an introvert, you're going to have to be really mindful of like what strategies you choose. So as an introvert, like I would probably suggest doing something that's pre-taped, like something that you have control over. So you could maybe like create a video and then link that to your course, or something like that, where you have control, where you can edit, where you can film it 15 times if you want, and you feel a little bit better than you're live and this is your only chance. So really thinking about your personality, and there's tools out there, like there's something called Enneagram, like, which was super helpful for me because I already knew a lot of things about my personality, but taking a test like that really like opened my eyes, like, wow, yeah, this is exactly me. And it was spot on for like many things. Some things weren't perfect, but that can help you. And then you also want to look at your strengths. So like, are you a good writer? So obviously your audience is bloggers. So clearly, like, I don't think they'd be bloggers if they sucked at writing. So that's probably true for your audience. Are you a good speaker? I even have like in my quiz, like maybe you're an artist. So maybe you're good at graphic design, or that could come naturally to you. So you want to look at those things. So if you're a good speaker, then podcasting, or maybe doing like a joint venture type of situation with somebody else that's related to the business that you're in is a good idea. And then the last thing that I'll mention is also the stage of business you're in, because if you're brand new, you may not have as much resources in terms of finances, but you may not also know like the technical side of marketing. There's like ads, funnels, like automated webinars, those all require some technical expertise, and you can outsource that, but you may not have the resources when you're just getting started. So, the stage of business you have can help with, figuring out whether you have a paid or organic strategy. So organic is like when you're just getting started. Paid is when you have a little bit more experience and the money to actually do things like ads.
Absolutely. There's so much advice there. I love that so much about having a marketing strategy which works for you as an individual. As you said, if you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert, an ambivert, because I think it's really easy, as I said before, to think that for marketing, it's one size fits all. And actually, as you said, it's completely not. So if you're sat out there as a listener and thinking, oh my gosh, I need to go and make all these YouTube videos because I watched, I watched something which told me the only way to market is on YouTube because it's like the second biggest search platform. Well, actually, if that doesn't fit your personality, find a different marketing strategy, find something else that works for you. I love that advice. So what advice do you have for those around comparing yourself to others when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, and this one is like one that we've all been trapped in, or at least speaking from personal experience. And I'm a business coach, so like it's I definitely have compared myself to other business coaches or just other coaches, other entrepreneurs, people, further along than me. And that's natural. That's part of what we do as humans. So like first of all, just accept that it's okay that you're doing that. But what I've found, and this wasn't something that I did immediately in my business. I was kind of like caught in that shiny object syndrome of, oh my God, I have to do this strategy, I have to do that strategy. But when you do that, you're basically taking away the possibility of allowing whatever strategy you're doing to actually work, because you have to realize that you're not focused and you're kind of all over the place, and the limited time that you have to work on your business is now being put in like 12 buckets instead of two. Like my advice is like one or two strategies, that's it. Like don't try to do more, and pick the ones that are actually the ones that you like. Because like for instance, I started a YouTube channel when I first started, because again, like you said, everybody tells you to do that, but I realized I don't love it. Like for me, podcasting is easier and it's more fun, and I get to meet people. I'm not talking to a camera the whole time by myself. Like it was just more fun for me. You just want to tap into that and kind of have to put blinders on. You kind of have to be like, no, this is what I'm gonna do, because I need to actually give it a chance and give it some time to see if it'll work. Because if you're just jumping around like a squirrel going after nut, like you're gonna get lost, you're gonna get maybe disillusioned, and nothing's gonna work, because you're not focusing your energy.
Absolutely. And, that's where we see so often on social media, isn't it? People saying, I tried TikTok, it didn't work. I went on Twitter, it didn't work. And when you talk to people, they're saying, well, actually, yeah, I only tried it for like 2 weeks and I only posted maybe 6 times in that 2 weeks. And you're like, well, it was never going to work then, was it? And yeah, completely like you. I mean, I've got a TikTok account. If anyone goes on my TikTok account, it is awful, because I kind of go through 2 days where I post loads and I'm really into it, and then there's nothing for like a week. So for me, it's really easy for me to say TikTok doesn't work, but actually TikTok doesn't work because I'm not working TikTok, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas my Instagram is a lot more fruitful for me because I like to hang out on that platform. So it's like you said, it's finding what strategies work for you and what you enjoy doing. I really like that advice of it's got to be something that you enjoy, because it's just, you're not going to put your heart and soul into it otherwise. If you're not enjoying it, please no one go and check out my TikTok, as it is all awful.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. Like, if you are putting yourself on other platforms and you're not going full in on them, it can actually damage your brand a little bit. Because if you haven't posted in a long time and somebody finds you there for the first time, they may be like, oh, well, this person isn't really like into their business, but they may not have any idea that you are going full in on another platform. So, you have to be a little bit careful about that. And I'm not saying like you should go delete all your accounts, but like just be aware that. And something I tell people is, the strategy out there, like to be going live every day or putting an Instagram story or doing a post every single day, like that's not like sustainable for a lot of people, and that causes burnout. So it's better to have quality versus quantity. And if you can only do one post a week, make it a good post and make it interactive, have a video or do something. And that's enough. It's better than just being there because you think you have to be there.
Yeah, I think that's so important, that idea of showing up because you want to show up and because you can show up, as opposed to thinking that you have to. So important. So let's move on a little bit then and say that, we've got our marketing strategy in place. We know which platforms that we're working on. We've got, we've put all of this work in, we thought out our strategy, got it in place. How do you know if your marketing strategy is working?
Yeah. And so this goes back to like the stage of business you're in a little bit as well. So if you understand the technical side, the easy answer is like go look at your Google Analytics or go look at your whatever analytics you're using for your website. For social, there's like on Instagram, there's insights. You can go check that out and see like, are people consuming your content? Are people leaving comments? Are they taking the intended action that you want them to take? Like, obviously, you need to also have a call to action, a CTA as it's known in marketing. Are they landing on your website after they've been on social media? Because that's something where I've seen a lot of people like do great marketing on the social platform, but then they don't necessarily send them back to where they should be going, where the next step is. So you have to understand that like kind of customer journey that you're creating for people. And that's something that you should plan out in your actual marketing strategy in the first place. But are they taking that next action to get to know more about you? Are they subscribing to your email list? Like, so those are ways you can find out. But then obviously, you can look at the analytics on your site and create a UTM code or do something more advanced to see if they've actually reached the goal. And then of course, since this is about, promoting courses, are they signing up for your course? Like, are they paying, to become a subscriber or a member or something like that? That's obviously, the gold standard of what you're trying to get to, but there's a whole journey that happens in between, first landing on whatever social profile you have or wherever you're marketing, and then getting to that final course.
And like you said, it's making sure that you've got those really clear call to actions in place, because people, especially on social media, we need to be told what to do. And I think it's because we're being bamboozled with all of this information from, left, right, and center on social media that we just need a really simple button that says click on this link or enroll now or subscribe to the newsletter. Just whatever it is, it needs to be thrown in our faces really to actually get people to do it, because we've got such short attention spans on social media, don't we? I read a statistic recently that said that people on TikTok, incidentally, since we were just talking about that, we can start to switch off after like the first 7 seconds. So if we don't have those clear call to actions, people aren't going to bother searching for them. So like you said, you need to make it as easy as possible for people to follow those intended actions there. So I guess the advice is really encouraging listeners to look at what they're putting on social media, and is there a planned out journey that is leading through from whatever you're putting on social media. If you want them to enroll in the course, is it obvious that you're taking them through to those landing pages, for example?
Yeah, and you want to basically like kind of like pretend that you're the person who you're trying to sell to. Like, would you buy this course? Would you know how to get to this course? And don't make it confusing for people too, because I've seen people who have like 4 call to actions and I'm like, wait, which one am I supposed to be doing here? Like, if you're just putting a social post up, you don't need that many call to actions. Like, maybe you can, but that's going to be more confusing for the person. And also remember, these people aren't necessarily marketers who are buying from you. So you really do have to spell it out and say, this is the link, click here. Or if it's on social, maybe you have to put it in your bio because you can't put an actual link, and then kind of walk them through the next step, and build that like authority as well and the trust in you by giving them like more information throughout the process.
Absolutely. And I was reading something just recently about how often people need to see a certain call to action before they'll actually click on it as well. So don't be disheartened if you put out that one post, you've advertised your course, you might have spent ages in Canva making this beautiful graphic, and if you don't get the click-through rate that you want, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I'm right in thinking that people need to see things multiple times before they do click through and they do kind of want to invest in something.
Oh yeah, I think it's like 7 to 10 times at least. It's a lot, and we don't remember that when we're trying to put something out there. We're like, oh, I'll just create it once, good, I'm done. But you're not. Like, it's a long journey, and I know this because I have experience in B2B marketing, which is a very long sales cycle, and that takes like a year for companies to continuously see content. That's hard marketing. This is a little bit easier, but you still have to be really consistent, and you still have to keep telling them what you're doing, and to the point where you sound like maybe what is it, a broken record, like where you feel like, oh, this is too much. I mean, you shouldn't always sell. You should also be providing value and doing other things, but you're going to have to put out your message out there more than you think you do.
And I want to pick up on something else that you said about making your call to actions clear as well, because quite often we find that the more call to actions we give people, the less they actually engage. And I think sometimes it's really easy for us to think we want them to subscribe to the newsletter, we want them to sign up to our online course, we want them to opt into our freebie, we want to go to our website. But actually, if you chuck all of that at one person, they're going to be like, well, what's the priority? What do you want me to do? And so they're not going to do any of it. Whereas if you just gave one really clear call to action, like you said, you're more likely to get that engagement.
Yeah, and also like in the call to action, you kind of want to tell them why they should be taking this next action. Like what is it, what's in it for them? Like what, what will I get in your email newsletter? Is it just me getting email, or like what exactly am I going to be getting? Because the more um, honest you can be as a marketer about what you're actually providing to them, how often you're sending, things like that, like the more they'll trust you and the more that they will be willing to give you their email address, because that's like basically it's valuable to people, like their email address. So privacy is important. There's like a lot of different things that are in play when somebody gives you their email address. Even if they give you like a kind of not a fake email address but a second email address, they still, it takes a little bit of convincing for them to do that. So they want to know that they're actually going to be receiving value and they're not just going to be sold to the whole time.
That is so true. The amount of things that I've seen, or the amount of graphics which I see on social media, I've subscribed to my email newsletter, and like you said, it's, well, what am I actually getting for that? You want my email address, but am I going to get, and I'm not saying that everyone needs to create, a 10-step mini course or something, but as you said, you want to know that you're getting some value to your inbox as opposed to just giving away your email address and worrying that you're going to be spammed goodness knows how many times. Or I guess some ways, worst of all, giving your email address away, never hearing from them, and then all of a sudden you get bombarded when they release a new course and you feel like you're being a little bit spammed because you're thinking, well, you haven't engaged with me up to this point. So I guess that feeds into this intentional marketing strategy that we were talking about before.
My background actually is in email marketing. That is what I have learned over many years in corporate marketing. You should not be collecting people's addresses if you don't know what you're going to be sending them and you don't have a plan in place. Like that's like the worst, because people will be like, well, why did I subscribe? And you sent me two emails and that's it. And then 7 months later, you sent me something else. Like that's not intentional or thought out. And just because you think you have to have email addresses, great, you should put those systems in place, but you also need a plan for nurturing those people once they get on your email list, because it's a pretty big lost opportunity if you got somebody's email address and then you kind of went silent. You need something for them to be receiving over time, and it doesn't necessarily have to be every day. I've seen that too, and that's like, to me, that can be too much. As the receiver, I'm like, okay, I want your stuff, but I don't want to be hearing from you 30 times a day. Like that's a lot. Maybe if you're launching, possibly, but even for me, that's a bit of a turn off if I get so much. So you just have to be like mindful of how often. Like go think about you as a consumer. Like what would I like to receive, and then go by that. And that's a little bit more intentional.
I think that's so important though, because I think particularly for bloggers, when you look at a lot of the articles and a lot of the advice for setting up your blog and running your blog, it is so much around you have to have an email list, but then the advice about email lists kind of stops. And I think that's where a lot of people run into kind of these issues that we're talking about. They set up their email list in whichever platform they're using for their emails, but then there's no intention behind it because they've got this email list because they were told that they had to have one. But as you said, they haven't thought about their recipients and what they are going to actually send out, what is their marketing strategy and what is their intention with that email list. So I think that's really, really valuable advice. I'm glad that came up in the conversation there. So my next question then would be of how long, and I know we have slightly touched on this, but how long should you run with a marketing strategy before you decide that it either is or isn't working for you?
Yeah, and I think this also goes back to like what stage of business are you in? If you're in the early stages, it may take you a longer period of time because you're just establishing yourself, you're getting your name out there. I think there's this misconception that we start a business, we start marketing ourselves, and boom, we have clients. Boom, we have like $1 million course. Like, I don't think that's realistic. And I think a lot of people buy into that myth because they see other business coaches, gurus, entrepreneurs saying, oh my God, like take my course and in 6 weeks you're going to make this much money. Like that's not reality. And even if someone made that like happen for them, there were other factors. They already knew a bunch of people. They already maybe had another business before they did that. Like, so it's not reality. So I think you have to first like check your expectations. But in terms of like how long, if you're getting data, if you're seeing certain results, I think that's important. Like there's some momentum that you can build on that. If nothing is happening and it's been weeks or months, then you probably want to take a look and make some changes. But the good news is, even if something fails, like you're still getting some data. You're still most likely able to get some information from what did I do that wasn't working. And you could talk to people in your target audience. You could look at, what of the things that I have tried, which ones perform the best. Even if it's like not a lot of information, you'll still probably know, oh, that post did really well or did a little bit better than the other ones. What in that post can I like magnetize? Can I continue doing? And yeah, if it's been a few months and you haven't gotten like the results that you want, then you probably need to take a step back and see like what didn't work. Maybe it's the strategy. Maybe it's my message. It's a lot of times it's not necessarily the platform that you're using that's the problem. It's what you're actually saying. Maybe it's whatever you're talking about is too complicated and people don't understand it. Like I've found that I did one post where I literally had like 3 lines of copy or 4, and I got more response from just a very simplified version of what my actual, because I have my own course too. So like what my course is. And that was way better than the stuff where I'm like trying to explain in detail what you're getting. So you just have to look at what's happening, and you do have to put your like science hat on, your like detective hat on, to try to figure out what's actually working, and then make pivots from there. And it may not be that you have to scrap the whole strategy. Maybe you just have to make some tweaks, and of course that's not easy to do because you have to figure it out. That's where the data comes in.
But it's really that trial and error, like you said, isn't it? And you're not going to know unless you've tried out that particular strategy. So I think when people turn around and say, oh, well, that marketing strategy completely failed. Well, no, it didn't, because as you said, you've learned from it, and you've learned that that doesn't work because of X, Y, or Z. And I was listening to a podcast episode recently. I can't think where it was, but I'll try and find it to link it in the show notes. And the podcaster was interviewing a member of the marketing team for this particular online course. And he said that they took 12 months to get their marketing strategy absolutely spot on, because this course is now generating like 6 figures. It's doing so well. But his message was exactly the same as what you are saying now, is that it didn't happen in 6 weeks. It didn't happen in even 6 months for them. It took them 12 months of trial and error of tweaking their marketing. Now, I don't want to put anybody off and people, suddenly crying into their steering wheels or wherever you're listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to work on a marketing strategy for 12 months. It's not what I'm saying whatsoever. But what I am saying is, like you said, it is it's a strategy in itself, because you need to make sure that you have that time for trial and error. And if you're expecting those $1 million incomes within 6 days or 6 weeks or whatever, then this isn't the podcast episode that's going to tell you how to get there. But as you said, it's that trial and error. It's trying things out and not seeing things as a failure, but knowing that actually that was a learning curve, and you have learned that that was not the way or the particular wording, the particular copy that was going to work for your audience at that particular time.
And another thing I'll just mention is, like, just because something didn't work out doesn't mean those people aren't still watching you and following you in certain ways. Like, I had a course that I did, like this mini course for free. I just felt like doing it one day. I put it together really fast. I didn't get a lot of people to do it, but those people are still on my email list. Those people still follow me on Instagram. Those people still send me messages. So clearly something I was doing worked. It just wasn't, first of all, it was free. So I wasn't trying to make money off of it. I was just doing it to promote my business. But I have gotten more engagement from some of those people that, I've even got testimonials. So it's not all like lost energy. Those people are still in your bubble and in your network. You may not realize it, but they may be the people who buy from you the next time you try to launch.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that just because they haven't bought from you yet doesn't mean that they're not going to buy from you further down the line. So like you said, no strategy is really a write-off, because you're going to get something. You're going to get some data or something from there. So I guess my last question then for you is, what would you say is the biggest takeaway for our listeners from this episode?
I think it's just about I don't know exactly where you are in your journey, so that's something for your listeners to think about. But it's just taking a step back, taking a look at whatever strategy you have in place now, and looking at it and asking yourself, is this working? Do I like doing this? Am I like happy showing up and doing this strategy? If I haven't built one yet, it's about tapping into your own personality and your strengths and trying to figure out like which marketing channels actually are a fit for me. Which ones do I enjoy doing now, or did I enjoy doing before I had a business? Those are most likely going to be the channels that work the best for me because I naturally am inclined to be there. So it's kind of like taking a step back at that and then looking at your stage of business. So, are you brand new or are you more experienced? If you're more experienced, go spend the money, go like run the ads, but have a strategy and a journey that you've already mapped out in place. Don't just run an ad and then expect like sales. Like there's a journey that you have to take people through, because unfortunately, even as online business owners, it's not as automated as we think it is. Like we still have to connect with our potential buyers, our customers, and we still have to get them to trust us. And that takes more than one touch, unfortunately. Like it takes a blog post, a video, a webinar, whatever, social media. It's not just, here's my landing page, buy. You may be lucky if you have like a lower ticket course. Sure. Like, I've bought things for $27 before where I didn't have to like go through that whole journey. But if it's more expensive than that, then they have to figure out that, they like you and they trust you enough to hand over the money. So I know that was a little bit long summary, but
no, but you're absolutely right. It is about building up that trust and that trust and that relationship between you and your potential customer or your potential student. Absolutely. We have covered so much in this episode, and I think if it was me listening to this, I'd just be walking away thinking, wow, I've got to go and work out my entire marketing strategy, get a pen and paper out, and I'd have a notebook, I think half full by now. Where can our listeners find you if they want to contact you, catch up with you a little bit more, or find out a little bit more about what it is that you do? Where can they find you?
Sure. My website is agathabrewer.com. That little quiz I mentioned is called What's Your Marketing Superpower? And it's there as well. So that's agathabrewer.com/quiz, where you can find out like what will work for you in terms of marketing. You can also find me on Instagram. It's Agatha_Brewer.
Fantastic. And I'll get all that link down in the show notes as well. So you just need to hit the link in the show notes and you'll be able to go through to all of those different pages mentioned. Well, Agatha, thank you so much for your time. I have really, really enjoyed this episode. Thank you.
It was great being here and chatting with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bloggers Creating Courses. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, leave a rating and a review. Ratings and reviews help us to reach more people who want to build and scale their online course. So you're really helping to widen the support for our blogging community. To catch all of the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram @VeritySongon. I'll see you next time. Happy content creating.